Welcome back. A hearing will be held tomorrow to determine what steps need to be taken to improve conditions at Rikers Island or allow the feds to take over the troubled jail facility. Over the last year and a half, 19 inmates have died inside Rikers, which has also been plagued with staffing shortages. Joining me now this morning is Benny Basio Jr., the president of the Correction Officers Union, to weigh in on whether or not a federal takeover is the answer. Good morning to you, Benny. Thanks for being here.
Good morning, Dan. Appreciate you having me on.
All right, so, Benny, let's get into this because this is not the first time that a federal takeover at Rikers has been brought to the table, right? So do you think that the feds could do a better job maybe of holding everybody accountable and fix some of these problems?
I mean, I don't think that a federal receivership is the answer. Look, we've had failed policies for the last 8 years. Commissioners that weren't from New York City jail experience. And basically all these policies have failed. So, the U.S. attorney basically threatened, that they may seek receivership. And I know that the media kind of jumped all over that. But the reality is that we're the ones that are more capable of basically doing the jobs as New York City correction officers. We have the experience, the know-how. But like I said, failed policies have plagued us. And, there are a lot of unanswered questions about a receivership. Mm-hmm. We know about one that happened in California that cost the taxpayers almost $2 billion. So we honestly don't feel like it's the answer. We need correction officers.
Yeah.
Give us the resources.
So I don't think the media jumped all over it. I think we've been covering this story, at least we have here at Pix 11 for quite some time, Benny. You know this. But a part of the big problem at Rikers Island continues to be, the staffing issues that you just brought up, and you're asking for those correction officers. And there's a lot of talk about whether or not it's because of sick calls and that your officers have unlimited sick days. But when it comes to the feds, would they be able to come in and straighten things out, since you're saying past commissioners and past mayors didn't really pay much attention to it? Could the feds come in, cut through a lot of the bureaucracy and the red tape?
I mean, look, I just think that the same thing is going to happen, right? In terms of, so a federal receiver comes in and has to hire consultants. And in the past, consultants were hired like the McKinsey Group that failed miserably and cost the taxpayer millions of dollars. So what, somebody's going to start all over again? I believe that Mayor Adams and Commissioner Molina deserve an opportunity to turn this around, and we need the resources. People talk about the sick rate and how many officers are out, but everybody's just looking at numbers. Nobody's looking at how many correction officers have been assaulted in the last year. 1,500 officers assaulted, and this is the result. You don't hire correction officers in 3 years. In a 3-year time frame, we lose approximately 3,000 officers to resignations and retirements, and in that time frame, only 75 officers graduated from the academy.
Okay, so
then you do the math.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying in terms of the numbers here, but you and I have spoken a lot about this, and you weren't happy with past mayors, you weren't happy with past commissioners. And you're not happy with a federal takeover. So I think people are looking at it saying, okay, well, what will make the union happier? So you're saying give this current mayor, you believe this current mayor and this current commissioner are on the right track, Louis Molina and Mayor Adams?
We believe, yes, that they need time to turn this around, all right? And we need the resources because, look, it's time to stop scapegoating correction officers. When a decision was made that they wanted to close Rikers Island, they let Rikers Island fall apart. And we don't have any resources. Stop with this nonsense about everything that's wrong with the criminal justice system isn't a correction officer's fault, Dan. We're not in charge of hiring correction officers. We're not in charge of keeping up with the infrastructure of Rikers Island. We've been set up to fail. And you know what's funny? None of the elected officials that are held accountable for leaving us this mess, leaving us in these inhumane conditions.
Yeah.
They created this mess, and then now they want to blame us for everything.
And I spoke to Mayor Adams just last week on Picks on Politics about this very issue, and he said that Rikers Island and the problems that he inherited did not happen in January. So he was alluding to it happening over the course of decades, right? And the mayor asking for more time, Benny, to implement change at Rikers. The city's been pretty vague, though, on the details of what the changes would be. Have they given you any indication on how they plan to address these issues? Are they answering your call for more correction officers?
I mean, look, we've had extensive conversations. I've testified at the city council preliminary budget hearing. basically sounding the alarm that we need more officers. If it wasn't for us sounding the alarm, none of the elected officials would have came to Rikers Island and seen our inhumane conditions. So look, if you want us to fix the problem, give us the resources that we need. We can't, I mean, I gave you the numbers. We've spoke extensively about this, Dan. You can't get blood out of a rock. It's, sick leave. Look, how many hours we're working, double shifts, triple shifts, no meal breaks.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
So they've taken our advice in breaking up gang houses, right? Gang affiliated houses that we spoke about before are now being broken up. This commissioner is now doing searches. They're doing tactical search operations. They're finding weapons. This is going to take a process because it's been 8 years of neglect. But all we're saying is that we need help.
Okay.
Right? You know why? 85% of our workforce is black and brown, so no other workforce in the city of New York gets treated the way we do. Inmates can't get their services because we don't have the manpower. There's consequences for everything that officers do, but no consequences for crimes that are committed in jail.
There's so many. I hear you, Benny. There's so many facets to Rikers Island. Of course, correction officers being one of them, and one of the possible solutions to fixing the ongoing problems. There's a wide array of problems there. So will you be at the hearing tomorrow and testify?
You know what, Dan? Unfortunately, we've tried to get meetings with the monitor. Our legal team sent letters to the judge. Because we are not a party of the litigation, right? They don't want to talk to us. And the ironic thing is that we have solutions to a lot of these problems. If we're at the table, we can talk about what works and what doesn't work. I've been a correction officer for 23 years. We know we're the boots on the ground, but the problem is you get people coming from the outside that have no New York jail experience. In the past 3 commissioners, 8 years of neglect, and this is what you have, Dan.
All right, keep us posted, Benny, on if you hear back on those issues of staffing. We're out of time today, but appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Dan.
All right, H.